Hello everyone, welcome to the video tutorial series of the operating system. I am your instructor Varshata. Let's start our today's topic. Okay, so at the end of this video, you will be able to learn about the methods for handling the deadlock. So in which we will see the different types of method for handling the deadlock. From that, first method is what? The deadlock prevention. That we will see in this lecture. So, this methods for handling the deadlock. How we are able to handle the deadlock? Let's see some scenarios. So, we can use the protocol to prevent or avoid the deadlock. You can use sometimes some types of the protocols. Okay, ensuring that the system will never enter in the deadlock state. Okay, so you should have to define that. Don't allow the process to don't grant the resource to be processed, etc. If there is it will lead to the deadlock. Okay, so some protocols that you should have to define. Then we can allow the system to enter in the deadlock state. That means we will not do anything until and unless there is a deadlock in the system. Okay, so if deadlock is there, then we should try to detect it and then we will recover from the deadlock. And next scenario we can do, that is we can ignore the problem altogether. That means ignore the entire problem. So these are the different types of scenario that you can use to avoid the deadlock. So let's see which are the different methods for handling the deadlock. So here you can see these are the different methods for handling the deadlock. Okay. So what is the meaning of this? We have total four methods, that is deadlock prevention, deadlock avoidance, then deadlock detection, and then deadlock recovery. So here, what is the meaning of this deadlock prevention? That means disallow the one of the four conditions for the deadlock. Deadlock prevention, that means what? We have seen the four necessary conditions for deadlock occurrence in the last lecture, which are those mutual exclusion, circular weight, etc. Okay, so we don't have to allow either of the conditions to be occur in the system, so we can prevent the deadlock. Okay, then next is what? The deadlock avoidance. That means do not grant the resource request if these allocations have potential lead to deadlock. That means we don't have to grant the resources to that particular process. So if we will grant the resource to that particular process, it may lead to deadlock. That means it possible the circular weight. Okay, so we don't have to grant the resource to the process if it leads to deadlock. So that is what the deadlock avoidance. Then deadlock detection. That means always grant the resource request when possible. That means the periodically check for the deadlock, and if deadlock exists, then recover from it. So deadlock detection, that means what? We will allow the deadlock to occur. If deadlock is there, then we will detect the deadlock, where the deadlock is there, who is forming the deadlock, and then we have to recover from the deadlock. Okay, so here one thing we have to take in mind, that always grant the resource request when it is possible. Okay, then next is what? The deadlock recovery. If the system enters in this deadlock state, then what we have to do? We have to recover from the deadlock. There are either of this condition, either of the solution, preempt the resource. That means forcefully preempt the resource from the processes which is holding the resource and does not performing any fruitful progress. Okay, so we should have to preempt the resource from such type of processes, or we have to roll back to a safe state. Okay, so we have to roll back the process to a particular state from where this process can restart again. Okay, so these are the four mechanisms to handle the deadlock in the system: prevention, avoidance, detection, and recovery. So let's start with the deadlock prevention technique. Okay, so first of all, let's take the example of the table. Okay, so if we simulate the deadlock with the table which is standing on its four legs. Okay, so table has four legs. Okay, now what will happen? Okay, so table have four legs, then we can also simulate four legs with the four conditions. Okay, so the necessary conditions for deadlock to occur in the system. Okay, so necessary four conditions So we can simulate these four conditions to the four legs of the table, okay, which might occur simultaneously cause the deadlock. So next, however, if we break one of the legs of the table, then the table will fall definitely. Okay, so if we will break either of the leg, then the table will fall definitely. You are not able to sit on that table. Okay, so the same happens with the deadlock. If we can be able to violate one of the four necessary conditions and don't let them occur together, then we can prevent the deadlock. Okay, so this we can compare with the table of the with the leg of the four table leg of the tables. Now, deadlock prevention algorithm ensures that at least one of the necessary conditions. Which are these conditions now? Mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption, and circular wait. Does not hold true. Okay, so deadlock prevention, that means what? This condition does not hold true. That we have to keep in mind when we are preventing from the deadlock. So, however, most prevention algorithms have the poor resource utilizations and hence results in the reduced throughputs. Okay, so let's start with the conditions. First condition, that is what? The mutual exclusion. Now, what is the meaning of the mutual exclusion? This we are studying from the last unit. What is the mutual exclusion? Mutual exclusion, that means at the same time only one process is valid in execution. So that is the mutual exclusion. Okay, so it says that the resource can only be held by the one process at a time. If another process is also demanding the same resource, then that process that has to wait. Okay, wait for the allocation of that resource. So practically, we can't violate the mutual exclusions for a process because in general, one resource can perform the work of the one process at the same time. Okay, so one resource cannot perform the work of the two processes at the same time. Here you can see the printer can't print the documents of the two users at the same time. If user one is giving some commands to the printer one that print this, same time user two cannot give the commands to the printer. Okay, that thing will be queued. So after the completing the task of the user one, the task of the user two will be performed. Okay. So at the same time, printer cannot print. So print one page from the user one side and print another page from the user two side. That is not possible. Printer just will print all the documents that will be assigned by the user one or process one to that resource. Now here again let's take the example of the spooling. For a device like printer, spooling can work. Okay. So as we have taken example in the last slide also that printer will print just one document at a time. Okay. So there is memory associated with the printer which stores the jobs from each of the process into it. Okay, so later the printer will collect all the jobs and print each of them according to the FCMS. First come first serve algorithm will be used there. So whatever the process has first arrived, that first executions will be there. So by using this mechanism, the process does not have to wait for the printer and it can be continue whatever it was doing. Okay, so later it collects the output when it is produced. So here you can see these are the numbers of jobs that will be assigned to the printer. So first job 1 will be completed its task and job 2 will be completed its task. Same way job 3, job 5, 4 and 5. And if many more jobs is there, then that will be queued in this queue. So although the spooling can be effective approach to violate the mutual exclusion, but it suffers from the two kinds of problems, which are this cannot be applied to the every resource. We cannot apply the same scenario to each and every resource. After some point of time, there may arise a race condition between the process to get space in that spool. Okay, so race conditions may be there. Now all of you aware about the race condition that we have discussed in the last lecture also, and we have taken the example of that train. If two trains are coming towards in a single track from two different tracks, they are coming towards a single track, then which train will get the access too fast? Okay, so that is the race condition. So that same thing also can happen here. So we cannot force the resource to be used by the more than one process at the same time, since it will not be fair enough and some serious problem may arise in the performance. So therefore, we cannot violate the mutual exclusion. That means we cannot assign the same resource to the multiple processes. We can violate the mutual exclusion for a process practically. Now, next is what? The hold and wait. Okay, so there are two approaches, but both have their own disadvantages. Let's see. In hold and wait, a resource can get all the required resources before it starts the execution. Okay, so that means the process will acquire all the resources, whatever the resources it needs memory, it needs printer, it needs any hardware devices. So all the resources will be acquired in starting when the process starts execution. So this will avoid the deadlock, but it will result in reduced throughput. That means the process is holding all the resources at the same time. It may be possible the printer that is assigned, that is required by the process, it may be necessary in the last. So that is what the process is holding the printer from the starting. Okay, and if that time another process required the printer, then it can't print the document. So this will avoid the deadlock, but it results in the reduced throughput as resources are held by the process even when they are not needed. So I have given the example of the printer. So printer, the process don't read right now. It will need the printer after some time, but still the process is acquiring the printer. They could have been used by the other process during this time. Then next is the second process, second approach. So second approach is to request for a resource only when it is not holding any other resource. So process can request the resource only when it is not holding the other resources. So this may result in the starvation as all the required resources might not be available every time. Okay, so every time the required resource is not available, so process will in the starvation state. So until and unless process will not get all the resources, the process will not start its execution. Okay, so this two approach have this all these advantages. So process in the set of the instructions which are executed by the CPU. Each of the instruction may demand multiple resources at the multiple times. So that cannot fixed by the operating system. So operating cannot fix that which process will need this much resources. Okay, so the problem with this approach is what? Practically it is not possible. Okay, both the solutions practically is not possible, and possibility of getting this down will be increased due to the fact that some process may hold the resources for very long time. Okay, so this thing practically cannot be possible. Now next condition is what? No preemptions. So there are two approaches again, which are if the process requests for the resource which is held by the another process which is waiting for the another type of resource, then what we will do? Then we will preempt the resource from the waiting process. Okay, so if process 1 want the resource R2, that R2 resource is acquired by the process P2. Now process P2 wants the another resource R3. So process P2 wants the resource R3. P2 is waiting for the resource R3. So what will happen? We will preempt the resource R2 from the process 2 and it will assign to the process P1. So process P1 can complete its task. So this point is exactly same like that. Now next is what? In the second approach, if the process requests for a resource which are not readily available, all the other resources, that is hosts, are preempted. Okay, so this is the second scenario. What will happen? For example, process P1 is demanding for the resource R2. Right now, process has acquired the resource R1 and R5. So if the process is demanding for the resource R2 and R2 is not readily available, so what will happen? We will preempt the resources, that is resource R1 and resource R5 from the process P1, so that that resource can be assigned to the any other process and it can complete its execution. So these are the meaning of this second statement. The challenges here is that the resources can be preempted only when we can save the state. Okay, we can preempt the resource only when we can save the state. Okay, for example, if we take the resource away which is being used by the process, then all the work which has done till now can become inconsistent. So if you are not able to save the state, then what will happen? That is inconsistency. That means you cannot save the state, again process have to restart. Okay. So here consider the printer is being used by the any process. So if we take the printer away from that process and assign it to the some other process, then all the data which has been printed can become inconsistent and ineffective, because we cannot save the state of the printer, and also the fact that the process can't start the printing again from where it has left. Okay, so which cause the performance inefficiency. So if you are able to save the state of the process, then and only then you can preempt the resource from that particular process. Now next is the circular wait. Okay, so to avoid the circular wait, resource may be ordered, and we can ensure that each process can request the resource only in the increasing order of these numbers. Okay, so to avoid the circular wait, what we can do here, we can assign the resource as in increasing number. For example, if the process P1 has allocated the resource R5. Now next, if the process P1 asks for the resource R4 and R3 that is lesser than the R5. Okay, so such type of request cannot be granted. Okay, the only request granted, that is what, the more than the R5. So if now process want the resource R6, then it is possible. But if the process want the resource from R1 to R4, then it is not granted, because now the process 1 is holding the resource R5. So this algorithm may itself increase the complexity. Okay, every time it is not possible. Suppose a process P1 wants the resource R3 again to do some work, but it is not possible to grant that R3 resource to the P1, because P1 is already holding the R5. So it may be possible the process P1 cannot perform its work. Okay, so the algorithm may itself increase the complexity, and it may also lead to the poor resource utilization. Okay, so in this video we have learned the methods for the deadlock, methods for handling the deadlock. There are 4 methods for handling the deadlock, from which we have seen the deadlock prevention. So when we are considering to do the deadlock prevention, we should not have to violate the 4 necessary conditions of the deadlock, and what we can do to prevent the deadlock. So this is all about this lecture. Remaining interesting topic we will cover in the next lecture. Thank you for watching. We will meet in the next lecture.